coming out early on Sunday morning. Thanks for getting up around the world and tuning into the middle of New York City, the heart of New York City. So what we've actually seen occurring over the last 60 years at Hippocrates is an enormous concern that we certainly realized our founder back in 1950 that we had problems, but little did we know that the problems would get worse and double and triple. So what we now are going to do is explain to you the trends in a way that everyone hopefully can understand these trends. There's an ever-growing increase of physical and emotional disorder. This unhealthy trend will expose and spotlight with many alarming statistics. Now, this trend is worldwide. We pointed out, I believe, last night in our panel that it was back in 1980, 30 years ago, that we in the developed nations, the prosperous nations, the nations that produced product and purchased product, we were the sick ones. And tucked away in the corners of the earth, the people who didn't have and weren't living the Western lifestyle, and we would have considered poor and peasant, were not as sick. But sadly, it's now equal. So we've pervaded the world with our insanity. And that insanity doesn't seem to be stopping in any way at all. As we export out globally our disorder, psychological, spiritual, emotional, and economic disorder, we're now polluting every person on the planet Earth. What's really interesting to me is to see these trends occurring and nobody at all being alarmed about it. Not one person standing up in governments anywhere in the world. I spend lots of my time outside of the United States, around the world, have addressed this issue. And what we do is we take surplus milk and surplus dairy when people are starving and they're hungry, and we ship it off to those countries, making the situation worse. I'll never forget, many years ago, it was interesting, I had the great privilege to work with a colleague and now a very close friend of mine, Dr. Schaller, in Switzerland, where I helped him develop in 1970s an institute called Foundation Soleil, Foundation of the Sun. And Dr. Schaller was a renowned doctor at one point and got up one morning and literally sobbed and cried and realized that the surgeries he had conducted and the practice of medicine he was conducting was illegitimate. And cracked a book open and looked up the word doctor, and although he was well credentialed, for the first time realized that the word doctor comes from teacher. And on the spot decided he would become a teacher and didn't get his secretary or didn't get his nurses to call his patients, individually called each patient and said to them, here's the doctor I'm going to refer you to. Went back, studied naturopathic chiropractic medicine, practiced that for 3 years, and realized it was still illegitimate because he was telling people how he could make them well. And when I had the privilege to meet him, he brought me in because I was an expert in raw and living food, and I worked to develop that foundation for a 1-year period. When he wanted to know about birthing, he brought Le Boyer in. And so we were very fortunate. I didn't realize at that youthful time in my life that I was with some of the great founders of the movement of legitimate health care. And we saw what legitimate health care could do there, and we've seen for 60 years what it can do at Hippocrates Health Institute. As Stephen pointed out, this is not speculation for us. This is reality. And how do we get, my challenge is, how do we get the masses, and certainly the medical community, to move from where we're the oddity, we're the enigma, we're the quacks, as they like to call us, to we're the legitimate, and maybe what they're doing needs to be changed. We do not have to attack anyone. We don't have to make fun of anyone or say that they're wrong. I've been wrong many times in my life, and when I learn a little bit more, I become right. But you don't ever be happy and sit on your laurels in being right. You keep learning, and you keep growing, and you keep developing. And the real art of science, and it really is an art, is to never be completely comfortable with the fact that you think you found the fact. The only fact is change. And change is perpetual. It happens from the time you are conceived until the time you leave, and well beyond, I'm sure. And so when we recognize that we are establishing foundational medicine and science on something that is static and something that is stagnant, no wonder we fail. No wonder we say the same old thing is not producing differences. Because the evolution of the human consciousness and the evolution of human health has got to go along with everything else on this planet and beyond this planet, perpetual change. And as we go and become comfortable with movement forward and progression, we will then meet the challenges to become normal again as a human race. Five leading causes of death by year just in the United States. Now look at these diseases here. Influenza, pneumonia, kidney disease, stroke, cancer, and heart disease. Every single one of those diseases are preventable. Certainly, you can prevent them from killing you. Why do people die of something as simple as a flu? That's what influenza is. Anyone have any idea? Well, somebody said it beautifully yesterday, and I don't recall who. They said, you already have the best doctor in the world. I think it was a young lady standing here asking a question. And that doctor is called the immune system. And that immune system needs to have a friend. And that friend has to be you. That's simple. And if you're friendly with your immune system, you do things like sleep enough. You do things like drink pure water and enough of it. You do things like exercise. You do things like eat food that's not going to tax the body but nourish the body and come out very easily. All of these things are living, truthful examples that you like the immune system. If you do anything other than what we've just suggested, or go halfway, the immune system doesn't trust you. Would you trust you? And the answer is no. Oh my God, she's up again at night. Look at that, I'm dehydrated once again. Oh my gosh, what is that thing they just put down here? Oh my God, it's a carcass of an animal. How do I get rid of that? Well, I take 3 days to push that out of my body. 3 days to push it out of my body. And do you know what energy it takes to push that out of my body? And oh my God, what is that dripping on top of me? Oh, it's greasy. It's yogurt. I know he saw the commercial on the Russians who live to 100 eating yogurt, but it's still greasy. So this immune system is phenomenal. Now what's ironic is over the 42 years I've done my work, and fortunately worked with the sickest people in the world. I don't know how I fell into that as a boy in my 20s, but right off the bat, the only people that would listen to us, frankly, were people who were told you're going to die and there's no other option. They all thought we were hippies. What am I going to listen? I went to the top doctor at the top university, and we're going to say, sprouts are going to heal you? The only people that would listen in those days were desperate. Boy, were they desperate. And we'd give them the sprouts, and I guess that little immune system starts to say, okay. And they start to get well. But ironically, when we tell people that Hippocrates doesn't heal anyone, none of these doctors this weekend have the ability to heal you. That's egocentric, ignorant, and why do you want to be lied to? We cannot heal you. But the best doctor, the teacher, as Dr. Schaller found out, can teach you to heal yourself. Why? Quite simply, this is elemental. Because we may be experts in one thing. It's not modern medicine, it's immunity. So if we can just train you and teach you to respect yourself, it's really self-respect first. Not sprouts first, self-respect first. Then all at once we have somebody who has an immune system that starts to say, my gosh, I'm going to start to do what I was meant to do to begin with. And ironically, when they go out and tell the doctors what I've just told them, the doctors say, oh, the immune system has nothing to do with cancer. Now, can you imagine that? Now, how the heck can an oncologist, who's not just a doctor, but a really bright doctor, academically trained at the top of their list, how can they say something as ignorant as that? Well, because there's a disconnect. In modern medicine, what we've literally done is convinced the doctors that the tools they use supersede the biology of perpetual time. Can you imagine that? That the evolution of humanity that made us this extraordinary creature isn't as significant as what we've learned in the last 75 years. Wow. You talk about arrogance. You think that's a little bit arrogant? Well, I do. So this is a problem, and these diseases are all correctable. Look, kidney disease. That was something I see occasionally 40 years ago. Now I'm seeing 25-year-old kids come in with kidney disease. You know why? High animal protein diets. High animal protein diets. I want to give you a kidney disorder. All I do is give you that meat. I used to eat meat 5 times a day, by the way. My desserts would be fried kibasi. Wasn't bad enough. I had to fry it in what? Butter. Then I'd actually dip it in ice cream. Get that picture? Now that's a little exaggeration, but butter I did. I did dip it in butter, which is worse than ice cream, by the way. And you got to understand, no wonder the kidneys break down. Because this massive amount of undigested protein tries to filter through the kidney, and with the amount of uric acid that this puts into the body, it's impossible. So it would be like me giving you acid from a car battery and hoping that you function after that. How many of you think you would function after you drank car battery acid? I hope you wouldn't think you'd function. Look at the next thing over here. Strokes. Yesterday, Dr. Deal so wisely reminded me that why we get dementia is clogged ventricles. As you saw the other day in a presentation, that by the time most people are 80, you're lucky you have 10, 15% of that vein able to punch blood through it. 80-year-old people, the average person in Europe, the United States, Australia, etc. 10, 15% of the blood that go through, carrying the nutrition, carrying the oxygen, carrying the water to the brain that we spoke about yesterday. So no wonder we end up with a stroke. Picture this. It's no different than me putting my hands around your neck and squeezing your throat. What would the result of that be? You'd be gasping for air and dying. You are literally doing that through improper choices of diet. Lack of movement and exercise. And stress. First thing that you stress. What do? You stop doing what? And how many of you think you're a little stressed here? Raise your hand. Those who didn't raise your hand, you're lunatics. Every single one of us are stressed. As calm as I think I am, I'm probably 100 times more stressed than a man would have been in 1900. Because we are bombarded by information. We are bombarded by noise and sound and lights. We are overwhelmed with information. And so we're all walking around with stress. Now, if you retire and move to the Himalayas and Om 24 hours a day, you probably will have triple the stress somebody did 100 years ago. The rest of us, forget it. Look at this next one, cancer. I guess when you say Hippocrates, we work with all kinds of people, and thank God an ever-emerging group of healthy people come to us. It's sort of awkward for Dr. Anna Marie and I. We're so used to heroic measures. You know, when somebody comes who's healthy, we do the heroic things, and boy, do they get well quick. Boy, do these people get well quick. It's like amazing. And why shouldn't the person with cancer and the person who comes to stay young and vital and youthful get the same program? Because you don't say, oh, well, compromise because you're healthy, we'll give you something less. How about that idea? You should say, wait, I'm being cheated. Give me part of the money back. I want what the guy who healed cancer got. Why shouldn't you? And as a good athlete, a gold medalist years ago in one of our films said, there is no different need from an athlete who's expelling and utilizing energy and a person fighting a catastrophic disease. We all need maximum energy. Never look for, ask for, or apply less than maximum energy. And what we've been talking about and are going to continue to talk about for a solid 3 days, from 9 o'clock in the morning till after 10 o'clock at night, we are giving you the remedy. This is not just about wake up, Genetic modification is killing you. Cell phones are killing you. Chemicals are killing you. We are giving you the remedy. And most of what I hear my colleagues talk about and I will talk about is the remedy. And the remedy is you. The remedy is not a pill. Cancer takes a lead. As you can see, cancer is outpacing heart disease as a leading cause of death in the United States now. So let's congratulate ourselves. This year, 2014, we've come up to par. We've reached Canada's illustrious position as the first country in the world that cancer disease was the #1 killer, superseding heart disease. So give ourselves a hand here, all the Americans. Now, the people who flew in here from all over the world boo to us. Say, boo, please don't export that cancer to us. All right, that's our gal. Here we go. Now, look at this business. Cancer has already become the leading cause through Canada. What is this? Now, to me, it's a little strange. I'm in Canada. I'll be in Canada at the end of this month. Nice people. Canadians are nice. They're always smiling. Yeah. They're always talking. There's rosy cheeks. They have this gigantic country. I think it's the largest landmass in the world, the most water of anyone in the world. Smiling, happy. And they were the first country in the world that had cancer. And I was talking to a very smart doctor in Vancouver when I was perplexed about this back in 2008 when they reached that position. And I said, how is it that in this pristine, wonderful, happy country, cancer? He said, mining. Mining. You know what mining is? That's where they go to Mother Earth and they actually dig holes into her skin and they mine out heavy metals and chemicals and they do this other thing that starts with an F. I don't mean that. They do that in Canada too because I see they keep producing Canadians. And Americans don't get up there and try to do it because they won't do it. They only want to do it with Canadians. But this one's called fracking. You talk about insanity. They put radioactivity, this is a fact, into the ground. Radioactivity into the ground to mine oil so you can drive around in your Hummer. Unbelievable. And nobody ever questions this. Matter of fact, the guy who was the very first head of the Patriot Act here in the United States, an illustrious, smiling, chubby congressman at one point, now works for the fracking industry. And he made sure that the same exact laws that are applied in the Patriot Act are applied to the fracking industry. So you can't sue them, and once they do their damage, you can't get back at them. Let's give America a hand. Come on, let's give it a hand. We are free! But we didn't even do most of it in our own country. We went to Canada. They're smiling. Oh, come on in. Come on in. You can radioactivate our soil. But it doesn't stay in Canada. There's something that happens that's real ominous. Underneath the earth, there's moving rivers. And those rivers go south. Uh-oh. Let's look. That's Canada up that way. We're south of Canada. We've got to wake up, people. So cancer's not going to stop. And as several of us pointed out, Dr. Davis the other night, who's a cancer expert, we both told you that the #1 killer of babies below 5 now is cancer, and it's brain cancer. Maybe it has a little bit to do with what I'm saying, but again, that's quackery. That's quackery, isn't it? Well, I'm glad I'm a duck. Heart disease. Now, this is so easy to reverse. It's not a disease. I would probably give 3% at the top. 3% of heart disease, the privilege to be called a disease. The rest of it is a lifestyle choice. You want to have a heart attack? I'll tell you how to do it. Now, get your pens and papers out. If there's somebody you don't like, you've got to convince them to do this. Because this will surely give you a heart attack. You don't move and you get under stress. That is #1 and #2. Don't move. That was my former life. I didn't move and I was angry all the time. Now, do you think that anger and non-movement have something to do with one another? You bet they do. Because when you move, something called dopamine and neuroreceptor sites in the brain work, and serotonin comes up from the intestinal tract, and these are called happy juices. So the more you move, the happier you are. That's why back in the 70s, when we hippies were writing books, there was the zen of running. We didn't know what the hell we were talking about, but we knew we felt good after running, right? Because chemistry, brain chemistry, and body chemistry was working, and the happy juices were there. So when you're fat and sitting around and angry all the time, no wonder. And then the next thing you do is you say, well, that's not enough to kill me. Let me start packing up my body with undigestible saturated fats. That's a really good idea on top of all this other stuff. And so then you're eating all of this stuff. You know, people say, eggs, the real food. What's real about an egg? How many of you would take an egg without taking it out of a shell and swallow it? Now think of that. Would you? How many? Maybe at the circus you'd see somebody do this. But if you cannot take an egg and put it in your mouth and swallow it, why the hell would you be eating it to begin with? If you're not willing to run in the field after the steer and jump on the steer and slaughter the steer and then cut it down and take its jugular vein and drink the blood out of its neck, why would you be eating it? If you're not willing to get on your knees, genuflect and pray, God, thank you for giving me food, and suck from the breast of a cow, why are you drinking it? Start putting 2 to 2 together, people. Wake up. Don't think, well, Dr. Shmahuki Fanuki Nikalaka said I should eat milk. Get over this stuff. Would you get on your knees and suck from the breast of a cow? If so, drink milk and be arrested by the New York State Troopers. Honest to God, we're out of our minds. Heart disease, although number 2 now, sadly, it's very, very unhappy. Heart disease is, can you imagine, they have heart disease conventions now. And all the hearts get together and say, boy, we were number 1 for almost a century. We were killing people as good as anyone could kill. And these bastards called the cancer guys came along here. So they're a little unhappy. Now, they're going to try to catch up. You can watch. There's going to be a battle now for a few years between cancer and heart disease. But sadly, cancer is going to win. And just because we match it in 2014, we anticipate by the year 2025 that cancer will be hitting about 65% of the population that's alive. And by the year 2050, we conservatively estimate that 80% of the people alive will have cancer, unless we put the brakes on. And when I go out to medical conferences and I speak, they always grab me because they know I'm going to tell the truth to you. They don't like that. And they say, now please, soft pedal. Slow down. Don't be so aggressive talking about cancer. And when you speak about cancer, don't say it's a catastrophic disease. Say it's a chronic disease. It's a C word. It's a C word. Just say it's chronic. And I say to them, what are you trying to do? Get the public to believe that it's normal to have cancer? And what do you think the answer is? Yes. What do you think the answer is? It's not normal to have cancer. It's not normal to have the non-disease called heart disease. It's not normal to have diabetes. But if you've been brainwashed, all of this stuff can seem normal to you. Now, here's a doctor that came to us. Carmine, who's here with us, this is a buddy of his. The Italians in Canada stick together. He's an Italian doctor. Now, again, he and Carmine speak all of the time because he says, hey, how can we give up pasta? I'm not sure. But if you go to Hippocrates, maybe for 3 weeks they can get pasta out of your diet. So he not only comes, he was afraid to come alone. He brings his entire family. That's what I do when I'm afraid. I bring Anna Maria along. Please come. Let test it on you. We brave men. He was at a high risk for heart attacks before this visit to Hippocrates. His father had suffered a heart attack and his mother a stroke. His health measures indicated he was next. And he was next. I mean, he was like all my buddies here in the New York area, my Italian buddies. Hey, what are you talking about? We would go out when I was a kid and go to the pizza joints, and we would each eat an entire pizza. Now, can you imagine that? How often? 3-4 times a week. Because that's where the girls hung out. Hey! And we had to sort of look sexy eating pizza. It's sort of hard. You ever try to be sexy eating pizza? You burn your mouth. Oh! Can I have a red mark over it? Not bad enough you have pimples on your face. But red didn't really work well. So this guy comes, a conventional doctor. Thank God Carmine's such a lovely human being, and he convinced his friend. He said, hey, I like you enough. I don't want you to die. Those other guys over there, I'm not going to send them to Hippocrates. After attending the life transformation program, his health markers normalized, plus he lost weight and released his mental fog. His practice overnight went to telling people to eat this way. A conventional doctor for more than 30 years, that's what we need. It's not, they're bad guys, we're good guys, the pharmaceuticals are bad. Those days are over. War never works. Separation never works. Hatred never works. Join the flock. Dr. Deal knows this well because Dr. Deal joined a brilliant guy who wasn't a doctor, thank God. That's why he was brilliant. Pritikin, who basically said, let's not put a wedge between us. Let's get all the doctors who had heart problems and invite them to work with us. A lot of them retired. They said, well, gee, I'm going to die, and I'm 40 years old, I'm going to die from heart disease. So Pritikin would call them up and say, hey, would you like to come work? I'll give you money, and I'll feed you right. And if in 6 months or a year you don't get better, you can leave. Isn't that how he got people? You think that's a brilliant plan to get employees? Yeah. So there's another doctor joining the troop of thousands and thousands of doctors worldwide because they had a personal experience. So if you have a doctor, don't be angry at them. Hug them, kiss them, love them, and invite them to take back their lives. Take back your life. We're here to help you. We're not your enemy. We're your friend. This is the saddest thing that Anna Marie and I do. Several times a year, I have tears in my eyes, and I actually cry, because as tough as you get working with these serious diseases over the year, you never get that tough when you see somebody that looks like my little boy, my little girl, my grandchild. You never get that tough. These are human beings. These aren't numbers and statistics. The war on cancer has been lost, and now the enemy is abducting our children. And I mean that literally. I want you to get that vivid picture in your mind. President Nixon, who was obviously a little corrupt, he was actually good in some ways. Usually these guys are, the bad guys are always good guys. He did more for the environment than any president in the history of America. Did you know that? All the good environmental laws were put. He finished the racial problems in this country and put in place laws. But he was also a bum. But one of the things he did, because he really believed he could have a war on cancer, because we were supposedly having the greatest brains in medical science in the United States. We will have a war and we will conquer cancer. And by the year 2000, I remember this. By the year 2000, there will no longer be cancer in America. And we have utterly lost that war. Now, since we lost the war and there's all these bodies called men and women laying all over the land, we had to go and start to get the other ones. And the other ones are our little boys, our little girls. And that's what the enemy's doing. Pretty sad, isn't it? But the most savage of all warriors are ones that will take the innocent. Brain cancer is the number one killer for our babies below 5. The number 2 killer of our children under age 16. In all the developed world is a plethora of numerous cancers. Accidents are the only killer superseding this plague with our kids. How many of you saw the statistic recently? That's why I think the laws in the world should be changed, that a child should not be given the right to drive a car until they're 18. Because the latest statistics show that 25% of who die are 16 and 17 in cars. As we talked the other day, I think it was Dr. Davis pointed out that the brain doesn't really develop until we're well into the middle of our 20s. We used to think it was 21, and I kept waiting. My child's 21. How come they're not normal? 22. When they reach about 30, maybe. Now I'm starting having intelligent conversations with my oldest children at this point. Here's another guy. This is an interesting story. I mentioned it the other day, and very rapidly. His wife came to us 25 years ago, was laying in bed with, nobody knew what they were in those days. As a matter of fact, a guy up in Yale was giving Prozac out when you had chronic fatigue syndrome. Remember that? How many of you guys remember that? The remedy for chronic fatigue syndrome is given antidepressants. Now it's a remedy for everything, by the way. Oh, you have a sore throat? Oh, you're depressed? Okay, we'll give you an antidepressant. That's why antidepressants are the number one most sold drug on the planet Earth now. How do you like that one? They think you're all dummies, and they think you're all nuts. Are you? And I'm not going to make you raise your hand if you're on an antidepressant. Get the hell off your ass, eat right, dance, sing, have fun. That's what you need to do. Not take a pill that takes your brain and puts perforations in it. So when chronic fatigue came, they said, oh, this is a mental illness. This has nothing to do with a physical illness. And thank God NYU stopped that nonsense. Because this guy had every doctor in the world convinced, give Prozac prescription, and the person would feel semi-good. You know, they'd be like this, and then they'd go like this. And then NYU said, hey, this is a physical disease. And they took MRIs. I love MRIs. They give you cancer, but anyway, they do good diagnostic work. And they showed the brain. And I remember seeing it. In a medical report, they said, here is the virus in the brain with the most severe cases where people are laying in bed drooling, looking like they're mentally ill. They're not mentally ill. It's a virus. It's a retrovirus. And among the retroviruses are something called AIDS, chronic fatigue syndrome, and back in my day, the kissing disease, which I certainly had, called mononucleosis. Remember that one? My mother said, you must have been kissing. Not me. I would never kiss a girl. Then she found out I liked girls. What a shame. So anyway, about 3-4 years ago, I get a call from this woman who was laying in bed, came to us in reverse chronic fatigue syndrome, without Prozac, by the way. And she said, my husband, who you met years ago, has CLL. Now, when you are told by a doctor, an oncologist, you have CLL, and you go along with the program, you should start making plans, seeing if you have adequate insurance for your family, see if your bills are paid. You should be doing that. Now, when I first met this young man, she brought him in. He's 15 years younger than her. And I'm going to give some advice to women now. Marry younger men. In our book, Dr. Anna Marie's in my book, The 7 Ways to Lifelong Sexual Vitality, most popular book I ever read. Who cares if people get well of disease? Sex, we like. 7 ways to lifelong sexual vitality. We point out that men sexually peak at 19, 30, your ass. 19 or 20. When do women sexually peak? 35 or 40. Why the hell are you with old men who need Viagra that doesn't work? Get those sexy guys in Speedos. And she did. Yes. She was vital. She drags him into our office years ago and says, I just got married. I'm in love. You could see they were in love just like I am with Anna. You know, googly eyes at one another. And she said, we want to have a baby. Now, I knew her tubes were tied. I knew her 30-year-old children, both. I'm thinking, I can't say this in front of the new young husband, but when he left, I said, what the hell are you talking about? Tubes are tied. You're 50 years old. Bingo. Late 50s, she has a child. Big, beautiful man. Remember the other night I talked about he built his own plane. I couldn't build a plane. I don't even know how to buy the kit. He built the plane, got in the plane, and flew at 16 years old across the United States. Marron. 3 years ago, my husband's going to die. Comes to Hippocrates, completely eradicates CLL. Oh, it's magic. It's mysticism. It's weird. It's quackery. It's biology. It's authentic, transparent, legitimate biology that heals the body, called immunity. Nobody heals us. Our immune system heals us. How you get sick is you destroy the immune system. How you get well is you improve and strengthen the immune system. End of story. Matter of fact, medical school could end in 5 minutes. Hello, everyone that wants to be a doctor, raise your hand. Come on, raise our hands here. Let's take an oath. I want to be a doctor. My first and foremost objective is to do everything possible to make my immune system strong and healthy. Now let's take, because remember, I am the director of Hippocrates. I can do this. So put the other hand up. Now you're going to be doctors. I'm going to give you the Hippocrates oath. I am going to follow Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine's instruction. I will do no harm, and let food be my medicine. Congratulations, doctors. Give yourself a hand. Charles was diagnosed with chronic lymphatic leukemia. The cancer was discovered at an early stage, and his doctors told him he would have to chemo or bone marrow transplant, which, by the way, we now know do not work. Instead of following their wait-and-see advice, Charles took responsibility for his own health. He attended the Institute, and now he is running marathons. His cancer is in remission. And he's the first man that said, we have got to have a national, then international distribution of living foods. So his new project is to create, so it makes it easy for all of you worldwide eventually, to pick up the phone and say, I want my week's menu of food that heals, and it will come to your house. So then you won't have any damn excuse. It's too hard to do. Excuses are for weak people. Prostate cancer, oh, a big one. Now don't look at that, ladies. Yes, this is a 19-year-old boy. The men are going to hate me after this, the older men are going to hate me. Over the decades, the incidence of prostate cancer have steadily risen. I mean, I never heard of prostate cancer. It was so rare when I began my work. I said, where's the prostate? Not really. It was almost like that. Nobody had to deal with prostate in those days. Recent European and North American studies have revealed that the current allopathic treatment do not reduce the mortality rate. Now, Harvard University, one of the top purveyors on the planet Earth for prostate cancer, said, and they were hedging this, they didn't say what they should have said fully, when men have conventional treatment for prostate cancer, there's no less death rate, mortality rate, than if they do nothing. But the Europeans did a better job. They took the 10 most impressive studies, empirically well done, brilliantly done. They looked at the 10 studies and said that there is a greater life expectancy for people who do not do the treatment, much greater than people who do the treatment. Interesting, isn't it? So what did they just say? Now, it's not me saying this. Who's saying this? Their colleagues in mainstream medical research. And as Dr. Greger so brilliantly does, this guy is like wonderful. He's a beanhead with a humor. I like him. He's like a really smart guy that has a sense of humor. That's like an oddity. And all he does is look at research. I'd go nuts if I did what he did. Research. He said to me yesterday, I'm going to send you research. Now, be warned, it's a lot. And bottom line is, the research shows us this. But why then do we continue on this catastrophic path of treating people when it has no positive effect, and by the way, has a negative effect in most cases? Why do we then, as Dr. Deal so well said the other day, take the artery out of the leg and put it here, expecting that within a matter of months that this person's going to be back in again? Stents do not work. As he pointed out, what was it, the American Cancer Society? I'm sure all worldwide they know this too. They don't work unless you do it right away, just to prevent a person from dying on the spot. I'm all for that. Emergency medicine. You're having a heart attack, don't eat sprouts right away. That's not going to help you. You better go to the doctor who knows how to put that stent in or open you up. I send people for things that I'm not really favorable generally for. I send people, I don't like chemo and radiation. But guess what? Some people need it. It's the only thing that can prevent immediate death or imminent death for them. So you send them back. Then you say, okay, now let's do what really matters. We're going to strengthen the doctors. What are we going to strengthen? Ann Wigmore's most popular book was called Be Your Own Doctor. Oh, my God. As Harvard exposed decades ago, high fats in the diet combined with unhealthy lifestyles dynamically and significantly increase the potential to contract this skyrocketing disease. Now, do you think laptop computers may contribute to prostate cancer? How about putting radiation next to the genitalia, the vagina? Do you think ovarian cancer, Megan? I don't think. Remember, every day I work with this. I never saw young ladies with ovarian cancer, and I never saw 3 times more testicle cancer now than I did a few years ago. And why is this happening? I just told you why. I don't suggest this is what I think. I'm telling you this is definitively what I think. I don't hedge on this. This is definitely contributing to it. How about all the chemicals? Go back to what I said about 23 minutes ago. that the developing countries are as sick as we are because now all those chemicals are everywhere. We mentioned in the first panel last night that everywhere they tested on the planet Earth, there is pharmaceutical drugs in the water. And not one, but combinations of drugs that make new chemistries. Diabetes. Look at this. It's almost as if I made that up. Look at the dates we're talking about here. 1980. 1980 to a guy my age seems like yesterday. I don't know what's happened since 1968. 1980? I remember the millennium. Remember what a con job they did on you? Because you're all consumers. You know how many billions of dollars they made on new computers? The end of the world's going to come. Your computer's going to break. I didn't know what the hell a computer was a few years before that. Now this thing I didn't know what it was going to bring humanity to its knees. Consumers. They got you to consume. And they do it. It's called guerrilla marketing. And when you're unhappy and sick and on antidepressants, you're at home and they have now commercials on TV and they say, "Is your leg restless?" What the hell is that? You haven't walked for the last 30 years. That's why you have a restless leg. Are you regurgitating? Look at the shit you're eating. Auto reflux disease. Diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is not a disease. I don't even give that 3%. There is no such disease as type 2 diabetes. It is a lifestyle choice. If you choose to have diabetes type 2, I'll tell you how to do it. Once again, get your papers and pens out. Eat lots of fat. The number one cause of diabetes is fat, not sugar. And how it works, quite simply, is the cell's fuel, one of the fuels, not the only one, is sugar. And if it uses it as fuel and burns it up, it doesn't stay in the bloodstream and is noted as blood sugar. Fat surrounds the cell. The sugar cannot get in and be burned up. It remains in the bloodstream. That's called blood sugar. Simple. How many do not understand how type 2 diabetes has after what I've just said? Now after you've made weak cells and a weakened pancreas and the insulin's going completely bananas and it's shooting sugar out, not shooting sugar out and putting too much and putting too little, it's like most people. Here and there, comme ci, comme ça, amends, back and forth. They go to the doctor and the doctor says, "Oh my God, you have a 200 in glucose level. Our remedy is let's put chemicals into your body." And you say, great, it's a wonderful thing. And when you go out to eat pasta or bread or you go out to eat lots of animal fat, just take a little more insulin. And they actually teach you to give yourself further disease with drugs, and so you can eat the things that cause the disease. You think that makes any sense? How many of you think that makes sense? Raise your hand here. Now you have to become a chemist. My poor mother, who couldn't stop eating bad food, God bless her soul. She could have come and lived with me and eaten this way. She's dead because she wouldn't do it. She was an addict like you're an addict. I'm an addict. I'm a recovering addict. Let's hope you're all recovering addicts. She's dead because she couldn't do it. When we went out with her, honest to God, I had to bring math tables with me. I had to bring calculus with me. Now, are you going to eat the cake or aren't you? Are you going to eat soda or you're not going to eat soda, And so you had to figure this all out mathematically. Thank God Anna was with us. She could do it. Diabetes. It is not uncommon for diabetes, especially those suffering from type 2 diabetes, to relieve symptoms and insulin dependence very quickly when a healthy diet and lifestyle is adopted. How quickly? So quickly it shocks. Weeks. We've seen people, this is not a joke. Years ago, we have this hotshot diabetic expert in West Palm that people fly in on their Learjets from all over the world to see him. And his patients kept saying, "We got to go to that place, Hippocrates," because 2 of his patients came who were lifelong diabetics, chronic disease, always going to take the insulin, and within the program came off insulin. So they demanded he come. So he says, "Okay, I'll bring all my patients," because he looked like a schmo if he didn't do that. Packs them all into Hippocrates. I get up to lecture, and thank the Lord, one of these interventions happened. Hallelujah. A guest who had been with us about 6 months earlier said, "I heard about this. I want to come and I want to talk." Now, I like to talk, but I was happy she talked that day because I was never a diabetic. Thank God at 20 I changed, or I would have been a diabetic by 25. No question, my brother's a diabetic. My mother was a diabetic. Everyone's a diabetic because they were out of control with their lifestyle. So she gets up and talks for 30 minutes. If I had scripted it, I wouldn't have been bright enough to script what she said. She had everyone crying. She said, do you realize I was a diabetic for over 30 years? Within 4 days, I was off insulin. And I haven't gotten on insulin for 12 months. So I leave, she leaves. The doctor gets up after that and says, now remember, what you heard was anecdotal. That this is not scientifically proven at all. Now, I wasn't in the room, but 2 or 3 other people said, by the way, the 2 women that had come here and come off insulin said, doctor, shame on you. We brought people here to help them. Don't take away their hope. Don't take away people's hope. Let people be responsible, and let's try this. We're not saying replace something. Try what possibly will work. And what doctor in the world, I challenge every doctor in the world, would not want a patient to get well? And if for some reason your doctor doesn't encourage you to do simple, common sense things to get well, find a new doctor. You got to be kidding. So here's this Canadian smiling. How many Canadians are here? Raise your hand. How do you say that word, ya? Ya, A, I love that. A, he's one of these A guys from out in Alberta. I love him, smiling. What are you all smiling about there? Couldn't be the fracking. In only 3 days, Jack was off the insulin he had been on for years. I forget how many, 10, 12 years he'd been on insulin. Now he was completely symptom-free. He went from 4 shots a day to none. In how many days? My friend, Dr. Cousins, he said, I'm worried about working with cancer. I said, we'll throw you diabetes. You want a real job? I said, you're in your 70s now. For the rest of your life, you can just deal with diabetes. So he wrote a job on diabetes. If all I did is work with diabetes, I'd quit. I'd be bored. That's simple. His secondary concern of hypertension and H. pylori bacteria were also banished after adopting the vegan living food diet. Now, by the way, let's not mislead you. We also gave him herbs for the H. pylori. You don't just get rid of H. pylori through diet 99% of the time. You've got to take some herbs. Or, by the way, antibiotics do kill H. pylori, but you don't want to run around with H. pylori because not only does it cause ulcers, but it is directly linked, as we learned in Italy, to fibrillation of the heart. Directly. I didn't believe, that's a funny story. I'm at a conference, there's Italian doctors next to me. He says, hey, in my practice, I figured out that H. pylori has something to do with fibrillation. So I had to ask him about 3 times. What do you say, fibrillation? And you're crazy, it's for ulcers. He said, you think you know what you're talking about. He said, but I know what I'm talking about. And he was impressive. So I came back and I got some of our affluent guests with H. pylori, and I said, can we do extra test on you? And we found out that he was right. About 3 or 4 out of 10 have H. pylori who are also having fibrillation. It's not the only cause. Long-term magnesium deficiency is the only cause. Not the only cause, a major cause. MS, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's disease. As we increase what? Our muscular nerve degeneration disease that are sharply increasing as the earth, we share in further saturation with deadly chemicals, heavy metals, and other pollutants. There is no doubt in any legitimate doctor who bothers to look beyond their bifocals that why they have many more people with these diseases is because they are contaminated. Now, MS in general, as Anna's going to be talking about today, is a microbe that attacks the brain, but is acerbated by heavy metals, chemicals, all of the things that we talked about. And that's why about 10 to 15% of the people who are diagnosed with MS do not have MS. They have heavy metal toxins in the brain. But sadly, 80 to 85, maybe 90% of them literally do have a microbe plus the heavy metal. Pretty scary stuff. Look at autism. Again, does it look like an artist drew that? If that doesn't look like scary, And these are the numbers they print and publish. We're going to give you the real numbers now. This says 75, 1 out of 5,000. 1980, it was 1 out of 10,000. CDC reported that. They're now saying in this chart, 1 out of 110. The latest numbers are 1 out of 50. Many other scientists believe that this discovery affects 1 out of 50. There are multiple causes that are all related to toxins provided to be the central instigator of these diseases. Autism affects how the structural brain and its related neuron cells function. Now, how many of you know people with autism? Look at this room. If I'd asked that question 40 years ago, nobody in this room would have raised your hand. Can you imagine this? And how many of you have been around these children with autism? It is frightening. It is sad. God bless the parents who have autistic children that love them and support them. God bless them. So we have to do something. This is catastrophic. It's one of the new catastrophic diseases. That's why we, on July 6th, will have the first legitimate, authentic program with a colleague, a doctor who's an expert in this, her whole practice is this, ever on the planet Earth for autistic children and their parents. Because the parents need healing, not just the children. And we've worked with autistic children, and now it's becoming so important for us to do even better and more with autistic children. Our species is hard at work manifesting self-destruction. This is being accomplished through the seeming universal pessimism, poor diet, inactivity, and inability or inhabitable environments. Now think about this. Look at what we have there. This is in a nutshell what we've talked about this entire 3-day weekend. Hour after hour, every one of us, experts in our field. I figured out last evening that if you put together all the experience that we have sitting here with you this weekend, over 480 years, of work has been accomplished by the faculty who's been here teaching you this weekend. So I want to honor them and give them a hand. Dr. Anna Marie and I have, in combination, well over 80 years of work working with the sickest people in the world. And most important, forget that. That sounds good. Big deal. Working with sick people. A lot of doctors work with sick people, but what happens? We apply lifestyle and see the results of that. Now, lifestyle, sadly, once again, has first to do with the mind. If I could, which I said the other day, it's a laughable thing, but I mean this. I don't mean this as a joke. If I could give you lobotomies, if I could get rid of your negativity, your stupidity, your insanity, your habitual patterns, every one of you could get well. The biggest hurdle we have, and it took me a long time because I didn't believe in this nonsense called psychology. I used to think if I just changed the diet, everyone would get well. Forget it. You could eat exactly like me, exercise as much as me, drink pure water, live in a good environment, have a wonderful life, a relationship. But if you're not happy, you're going to croak. You're going to croak. So the happy factor is really the most important factor. And so your first and foremost job as doctors, because all of you are doctors now, you took the oath. You took the Hippocrates oath. Have to first and foremost make yourself happy so that you can infect others with happiness. And if you're a walking, talking, living example of happy, guess what? People want it. But they're not going to come to you and tell you you want it. They're going to call you names. They're going to call you strange, odd, queer. Something's odd. They're eccentric. But why they're calling you that is they want what you have. They want what you have. This little sweet lady, 81-year-old, said, she was sick from the time she was 14. When you said that, my heart broke. Imagine, when I was 14, all I wanted to do was get mononucleosis. When I discovered kissing, I never stopped. She's sick. And well up into her years, in her, quote, mature years, she woke up and she completely adopted this kind of lifestyle and healed herself. God bless you. God bless you. When I grow up, I want to be like you. I asked my friend who's 106, why are you alive? He said, every day I get up and try to do something I've never done before. I said, are you running out of things? He said, I've just started. That's not a joke. Great story. When I first moved the Institute from Boston, almost 30 years ago now, down to West Palm Beach, it was a struggle. Little did I know that people are really in patterns. We had actually people sign up for Hippocrates, and they would fly into Boston. And we'd say, we're here at the airport to pick you up. And they'd say, where are you? And they'd say, it's snowing. We said, oh, no, you're supposed to be in West Palm Beach. So it really took us a long time to get started up again, even though we had a 31-year history before that. And I was a little discouraged because I thought, gee, we have this illustrious history and everyone's just going to follow us like the flock down here. And we struggled for the first 3 years. And I had really close friends in Geneva, Switzerland. And one of my favorite people, her nickname was Happy. Well, she was probably the most balanced, kind, compassionate, loving human that I've ever seen in my life. I've ever gotten to know. I've ever had the honor and privilege to get to know. And when I was in one of my lulls there thinking, how are we going to pay the bills at Hippocrates, they sent me the front page of the Geneva Gazette. And they never have color on the front page. They had a color of Happy on her 100th birthday. 100th birthday, jumping off the Alps, hang gliding. It's not a joke. So about 2 months later, they all knew I was struggling, so all my European friends got on a plane, came over and said, we're going to go and dance every day. We're going to put music in here. We're going to get the thing going. And I said, great. And I sat with Happy quietly in the room. We call it the Hacienda now. And I said, Happy, why do you jump off the Alps at 100 years old? She said, I had never done it before. I thought it would be fun. That's what you have to think. Just because you've never done this before, that's why you want to do it. That's why you should do it. And let me promise you, you're going to fly when you do the right thing. Because I do believe that there's a universal wisdom of God, a connectivity between every human, this planet, and the endlessness of the universes, multiple universes that exist worldwide. And this isn't spiritual New Age crap I'm talking about, it's science. And I believe that you have the power of God within you. There's nothing you are incapable of here in this room or anywhere on the planet Earth. Once you're willing to take your life back, once you're willing to realize you deserve to be happy, and you deserve even further to be an example of happiness. Joy. But happiness is not an idea, a philosophy, or a theology. It is an action. It's contagious. You've got to fall in love with constant elation and expect that that's the normal state of affairs. Oh, there's always been war. Everyone's always hated. Forget it. I don't need to be told what I know is wrong. You don't need to repeat what you know is wrong. You need to say things as I had to do at the beginning. I was so negative. I had to say uncomfortable things to myself like I deserve it. I didn't believe I deserved it. I didn't believe that things would turn out right at the end. I didn't know that the world was an easy place to live. And I was a privileged young man that grew up in the United States of America, or you in Europe. I didn't know that. But you better know that now, and you better thank God every single minute of your life by action. Not by philosophy. God doesn't need you to pray to them. God needs you to be godly. And to be godly is to be well, to be sharing, to be happy, to be healthy, to be kind, to be compassionate, and most important, to be truthful, to be honest. It's not always easy to tell the truth. I learned that. I thought as soon as I told the truth, people would like me. The opposite result occurred. I've been called every name in the book, and I welcome it. Because I realized, by the way, that I would have been there yelling at me at one point too. Because I was an example of what I was incapable of doing. Be compassionate for those who resist you. Those of you who purport you're Christians should get the example of Jesus Christ, who was literally on the cross and forgiving the guy that's stabbing him in the side. That's humanity. Martin Luther King, who predicted 12 hours before his death, I won't make it with you, but it's okay. you're going to make it. And boy, have we. Have we gone a long way since those days. Mandela, who was inside of a jail, 27 years. They tried to kill him 7 times unsuccessfully. And he gave out and hugged and loved and gave respect to his oppressors. That's humanity. And they're not exceptional people. You're the exception if you're not them. Remember that. Healing has more to do with your idea about who you are than any other single factor. My good friends who are here, Petrus and Loretta, came to me years ago. They're Lithuanian Americans, good Americans. The most devout Americans I know are immigrants, like my wife, who, by the way, years ago said, those poor people who were the first attendees at 9/11, let's give them scholarships. So we started. Those poor boys and girls that they drag to Afghanistan and Iraq, let's give them scholarships. And this year, we're giving scholarships to those victims of the Boston bombings. Because we've got to share. It's no longer time we talk about our ideals. We've got to place our ideals into action. There's not a man, woman, or child who cannot come to Hippocrates. We have billionaires that come and people who are impoverished. We have scholarship programs for the indigents and payment programs for you and I who spend too much bringing our children up and paying our bills. But you can come. There's not a man, woman, and child we don't accept at Hippocrates. So years ago they said, you know, you wouldn't be here. This movement wouldn't be what it is. Before there was an alternative field, before there was a holistic field, there was Ann Wigmore, who basically said, no, I'm not going to die because the greatest doctors at Harvard told me I'm going to die. No, I'm not going to do it. And so 3 years ago, we went to Lithuania. We had the top artist in Lithuania, who in the year 2010 won the International European Award for Artists, build this monument for her. And we went to the village where she was born 100 and some years before. And in the church she was christened, we had a wonderful mass to honor her. And that monument will be there long after all of us are gone. And then I went to a medical school, and my big Irish mouth said to the doctor who was in the room with the dean, why don't we take this medical school and convert it into a legitimate medical school and teach plant-based nutrition? And was I stunned when they said yes? God bless these people in Lithuania. Yesterday I was told that this man was just asked to head the entire arena of healthcare in his country of Lithuania, the same man that agreed to this. So let's give them a hand. So once I got us into the hot water, I said, gee, I'm not an academic. Let's see who are the most academic people I know who can help us put together this program. And it was pretty easy. I looked at my buddies, Dr. Campbell and Dr. Esselstyn. Give them a hand. But guess what? Yesterday I shook the hand of a man sitting in this room, and he's going to come on board, called Dr. Deal, who's also an academic. I whispered in his ear last night. I said, you're going to have to take a sabbatical once we get this going and come over for a year and help us do this. If I'm an academic, boy, what a nightmare that curriculum would be. I'd be teaching happy. Happy 1, happy 2, happy 3, happy 4, happy 5. You'd go right to graduate happy. That's where you just scream and have fun all of the time. So Dr. Esselstyn and I, October of this year, will be there finalizing this, and hopefully in the next year to 2, it will be launched, but not at one medical school now, at the 2, number 1 and 2 medical school. And you and the people you know who will seriously want to practice legitimate allopathic medicine will be able to go there within the next few years and get a degree in English. So that's congratulations for that. Here we are actually putting together plaques. Some of you have money, some of you don't. If you have money, please put some money into those plaques. They're going to go to establishing this medical school, to keeping this perpetual love fest going on in this welcoming country. You know, it's a brand new country. They actually threw the Russians out back in 1991. It's a brand new country, and they're just like adolescent, wonderful, innocent kids who say, we want to be doing the right thing. Isn't that nice? Yeah. Isn't that nice? The road ahead. These challenges are surmountable. Humans are awakening, and reversal of our current fatal trends can be accomplished. As we conquer our fears and learn to appreciate our infinite abilities, we will recapture our birthright of total health and complete happiness and compassionate sharing. Isn't that what we want? Boy, you're lukewarm on that one. Isn't that what you want? Now, how are you going to become happy when you just have all these problems? Everything's perception. Do you realize that? Whenever I think I have a problem, I say, oh, what a fool I am. I just think I have a problem. Now, it's hard to say that when you're in the middle of a problem, I know. If you could just back away from things, get, as my buddy says, 60 miles above it, and look at the big landscape of things. As I always suggest to people, one of the most brilliant psychotherapists that I had work with me, Natalie Cabot-Nagel in Boston, I said, how are you so brilliant at what you do? She said, I never give advice. I said, well, how can you change people without telling them what to do? She said, that's the problem that psychotherapists make. They tell me what they need. That's the problem psychotherapists. You know why? How they make money? They keep going back. Now, didn't you tell me you had this problem back in 1962? Let's talk about the problem again. But doctor, I've been here 10 years talking about the problem. Let's talk once more about the problem. It's a good way to keep the money going, right? But how about if you get in the room with somebody and say to them, talk to me. Tell me about all the negative things in your life and all the positive things. This is what I'm suggesting to you, by the way. Get into the room with you tonight. Look in the mirror and think about all the negative things and positive things. Now, sadly, your mind is focused on the negative because we've been taught that the negative is the compilation of who we are, that the struggle is what makes us strong. Struggle doesn't make you strong. It wears the hell down it. And the overwhelming majority of what you and I have experienced is positive. When the psychologists analyzed insane people like Adolf Hitler, they realized that 90% of his life was positive. What did he choose to focus in on? The negative. If you choose to turn into the negative or think of the negative, maybe you won't be Adolf Hitler, but you're going to kill yourself. You may not try to wipe out the masses, you'll wipe yourself out. As sure as I'm sitting here. You'll wipe yourself out. And bottom line is, why she was brilliant, she'd say, for 45 minutes. Never say a word. So people think, oh, good, she's listening. First doctor I ever had listened to me. And she said, I'd only write down the things they said that were positive. In the last 15 minutes, I'd show them that's who they are. You follow what I just said? That's what you have to do. Look in the mirror, figure out all the positive things. And boy, you could keep writing and writing. You could be writing for 5 days. Look at all this. When I was this, when I was 1, when I was 5. I had wonderful parents. I had a great time. I had this great teacher that loved me, this great coach that helped me. And you can have this overwhelm. That's who you are. We will change humanity one person at a time. Our magazine, Healing Our World, is out to do that. Reversing catastrophic disease. That's what we have to do, people. We're going to open up for a few questions at this point. But if you know me at all, you have to know we have to dance a little bit. So get up, get that music going up there. Get ready. We're going to apply happy here. Remember, action is what we are. God bless black people. I love black people. I don't know why we keep pressing those people down. They created American culture. What the hell's wrong with us? Anyone that's happy, we're pissed off at. Change your attitude, people. Okay, so what we'll do is answer questions. We have these microphones set up here. Come on up, be very orderly, stand up straight with your posture. We'll start over here on the right side and go back and forth until they throw us out.
Happiness begins working with kids. It's really wonderful. They're happy. They come up and hug you. They appreciate you. We have a program that's supported completely by Hippocrates called Real Kids, Real Food. And real food is defined as what you can pick. None of those other definitions, but what you can actually pick from the trees and what you can pick from the ground. These kids really love growing food. They sprout the sunflower sprouts, the wheatgrass. They're always asking, what are we going to make next? You can go on the website, www.optimumhealthsolution, that's singular, no S,
www.optimum.
Optimum Health Solution.
OptimumHealthSolution.org.
This program we can give you all the lesson plans. You can start it in your own communities. We will help you. I'm glad to give advice to anybody. So please start in your own community.
Can you come up here, Betsy, for a minute? Because I want to honor Betsy Bragg. God bless you, Betsy. Betsy is a graduate from the Hippocrates Health Educator Program, our missionary program. We have people now in over 30 countries worldwide. And this year, in 2013-14, she's going to win the award from Hippocrates as the most important person.
He didn't tell me yet.
This woman goes into the poorest areas of Boston, Massachusetts, and teaches living food programs and sustainability, true sustainability, the type that we spoke about Dr. Oppenlander yesterday. Honor this woman for what she does. By the way, for 25 years ago, you developed sobriety, but before that, you were a mess?
I was an alcoholic since age 12. And really addicted.
Come to the mic. Come to the mic. We can't hear you.
Speaking of Mike.
Okay, excuse me. I got to hug him. I've been an alcoholic since age 12. I've entered AA in 1980. I came to my son. Sent me to Hippocrates. He'd been there. He said, "You've got to go." I owed him $7,000, and he said, "Mom, you owe me nothing if you'll go to Hippocrates." And it transformed my life. I had terrible arthritis. I couldn't sleep through the night. I could hardly move. I was so acidic. I was still addicted to food. The cravings absolutely lifted for sugar and flour. Absolutely amazing. My arthritis lifted too. I'm back on the ski slopes. I'm back kayaking. I'm 80 years old and very happy and going strong.
God bless you. God bless you. Pretty soon I'm going to stop telling Hippocrates to give me payments. Isn't it? This is the payment here. This is like amazing, isn't it? Luz, another friend.
Good morning. How many of you were here last night? Okay, great. So out of your inspiration and the doctors that were here, I made a commitment, right? And I called my husband, Michael Lee Gerber, and I said, save the date. And he said, for what? I said, we're doing an event at our property. He said, what? So he didn't know, but now he does. So now we have a website, The Real Truth About Love. Because on Valentine's Day, Brian has taught me that it's all about love. And unless we love ourselves and really thrive, we can't make a difference to another person. And I thought I loved myself. I was incontinent for 16 years. I had asthma for 16 years. I went to Lyme. I've had all kinds of issues that I've healed myself. And Dr. Ann Wigmore was my personal mentor, and Brian is now my personal mentor. So he's carrying on that legacy of Dr. Ann Wigmore. So we together as a community are taking this legacy to the world forever. Why? For our children, for our children's children. So we have a website. It's called The Real Truth About Love. And if you can remember that, you can write, I love my woo, which means I love me. What is it? You, we,
and everyone else.
And the universe.
Yes.
Because that's what we're here for, is to create a new future for our children's children. So please join us. Tonight you can go to our website, I love my woo. If you can remember the real truth about love. Join us. Michael is excited, and we're looking forward to meeting you all February 14th, 2015, which is a weekend, and we already have 11 doctors, some from here, that will be there to bring you amazing information for our transformation.
Wonderful.
In California.
Okay, they've just given me the stop sign, but we'll quickly answer 2 more questions, and then we'll have to take a break, and Dr. Anna Maria will come up. Yes.
Thanks for your presentation. You mentioned there are times where you would recommend a stent or something, emergency, guy's having a heart attack. Makes perfect sense. But you also mentioned that there's also a time where you would recommend chemo.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to elaborate when that time would be.
It's a rarity, but we often see where people have such invasive cancers that they're strangling an organ in the person's body. Now, the immune system heals, but sadly it doesn't heal as rapidly as we'd like it to sometimes. So if a person is going to have an organ collapse, a heart stop, a liver stop, because it has no function, because the cancer is that pervasive, invasive in it, there's only one option that we know of on the planet Earth today. Now, that option's going to change, because in Europe they're doing in mainstream allopathic medicine very serious work that may take a generation or more of what we call immune-boosting biological treatments for cancer. But at this point, sadly, I'd rather save the person's life and then hopefully give them the encouragement and support to rebuild their system. But that's a rarity. It's the exception to the rule. Most of this stuff is thrown to you if you sneeze. You know, oh, you have this, you have that. We're preempting it. Well, look at the numbers. Look at the statistics. Look at my buddy, Michael Anderson's documentary called Healing Cancer from the Inside. That's a must for any of you that have cancer. Last question, I'll answer questions outside.
I don't have a question. I'd like to be an encouragement here. A couple years ago, at the age of 72, I'm now 74, I said, what can I do? You know, and then I started to think about my grandchildren and I couldn't stop. I thought, it goes on and on. So I began some programs in schools with gardens. And then from
you yourself started to teach in the schools?
Yes, started in schools, and then the kids bring the stuff in from the garden, and we teach them how to eat it and how to make smoothies and all kinds of things. So I just want to encourage you, locally, just start anywhere, and it'll start to just blossom.
Isn't that beautiful? Okay, we're going to put some music on and transition. God bless, be well. Doctors, heal thyself.